Right, welcome back to the Den. I'm Callum Sevier from Retropower, and I'm here with my equally gluttonous for punishment brother Nathaniel, and an absolute pleasure to be joined by Lee Noble, who I think it's safe to say has designed an extremely high number of cars over the years. Let's rewind right to the start and your early years and basically what got you into cars.
Where did it all begin?
Ooh, best day of my life, 1975. Left school. That's got to be the best thing. Started out as a auto electrical apprentice, which was I was pushed into by my parents. You know, you got to have a trade and all this crap. Hated every minute of it. Then I had quite a bad crash on a motorbike. Spent a year recovering, blah, blah, blah. So decided they weren't very sensible things. So I better get one of these motor car contraptions. You know? So I'd got about 30 quid, I think, in my pocket at the time. So I passed my test first time and thought, what can I get? I bought a Hillman Imp. Might sound stupid now, but very interesting little car, you know. And I thought, these motor car things are quite good, actually, aren't they? You know, put cosmic wheels on it, you know what it's like, and all that. I loved it. Never looked back, you know. But the key wasn't really the engineering or it was being able to drive, having that freedom to do what the hell I wanted to do. It sounds really stupid, I know, but you asked me where it started.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it got to. And then I decided to take the engine out, make it faster, so you learn how to do that, you know. And then that was boring, so I bought a Mini Cooper, and then I got rid of that and bought a Datsun 120Y and did that up, and you know, it just went on and on and on. Then I thought I hated the apprenticeship. I went back to that, and there was just a bunch of idiots. I just decided, no way, can't do this, you know, because getting paid 20 quid a week for doing 40 hours work was ridiculous. So started in bodywork. Went to got a job in the bodywork, rubbing cars down in Leicester under the railway arches. Usual thing.
Yeah.
Learned how to weld and put these things back together. And then I ended up taking a job running a body shop, which was, I'd never done it. I mean, I'd only worked for this guy rubbing down cars, but I'd bullshitted my way into this job and ended up running a body shop. And it was a guy in Foss Road in Leicester. And he had a contract with East Midlands Electricity Board for all of their vehicles. Now,
Battered vans.
Yeah, it was escort vans was at the time. And there was 3 a week come in. We needed a new side on them, or you know. And in those days, insurance companies would pay for anything, so we put a whole side in this bloody car. And I got quite good at it. And you know, I thought there must be more to life than this, so I started doing it a bit in the night time. Then I gave that job up and started restoring cars and doing my own thing in my dad's garage in Littlethorpe. He lived at the time. And I was doing all sorts of things like that. And then I thought, I did lots of TR6s. TR6s got really into TRs. I did a 2, 3, 4, 4A, 5, 6, you know, did all them and got into the TR register. And they started a sprint. They had a sprint day at place called Kerborough, which I'd never heard of.
Little tiny little tracker.
Yeah, and I hadn't got a TR, but I'd just done one from a doctor guy in the Leicester Royal Infirmary, done a lovely red TR6, and it was beautiful, you know, and he spent every penny he needed on it. It was good. And I said, I'll come along, look after this car for this day. You know, didn't need looking after, but, you know. And he goes around this track. Anyway, I had a Symmetra at the time, a GTE, which was quite interesting, but it was an automatic, unfortunately. And I went to this track, and he said, why don't you ever go around in the Scimitar? I thought, OK, I'll have a go. Not a good plan. It was wet. It was wet. And this blasted car just wanted to change gear when you didn't want it to change. You know what I mean? And it ended up stuck in the mud, and they had to get a tractor to pull it out. And I'm thinking, there must be more to life than this. That's not my greatest day, and I'm not a superstar now yet. But anyway, the guy said to me, he said, why don't you take my car around? I thought, yeah, OK, because I was driving TR6 all the time, because I was doing them all the time. And anyway, long story short, I won the bloody thing. Come on. So I was quicker than anybody. And I thought, that made me think, I quite like this idea, you know, so I'm going to look into this a bit.
It's easy, this competition, malarkey.
Well, we're restoring cars with an ex-friend of mine who's a nightclub manager in Nottingham, and he was putting the money in to buy the cars. I was restoring them, we were selling them and making a living. And he said one day, let's go racing, because after the sprint, let's go racing. We'll go to Jim Russell School. So he books this Jim Russell School. I'd never heard of it, to be honest with you. I'm not into cars at that time, other than what it is. Anyway, we'd done a GT6 for yellow ones, you know, beautiful, lovely looking little car. Done a nice job of this car. And we were, a week before we were supposed to go to the Jim Russell's racing school thing, he was driving it from Nottingham to Loughborough, where he was nightclub manager. And he fell off the road and hit a post and killed himself. So,
Shit.
you know, I put that on the back burner for a while and just restored cars, but then it's itchy, you know, like I really think I could do this racing thing. So I told you a minute ago, long story, somebody gave me what was it called, a Jensen Healy. I had this piece of crap in the back garden for ages, and I thought, it's not heavy, it's got a Lotus engine in it, must be all right, you know, so I put a set of fiberglass wings on it and took it 750 Motor Club and went to Brands Hatch. And the night before the race, we turned up and nicked my dad's transit van to tow it, you know, at the time. We got totally pissed, and I completely fell asleep in the back of this van and missed scrutineering entirely. And I got the hangover from hell, you know what it's like. And they did the scrutineering for me, opened it up again and did it for me, because nice.
Ideal start.
I was nice to them. Anyway, and I spent the whole race trying to beat a midget. And I did beat it on the last corner, you know what I mean? And I thought, I'm getting worse, not better. So that lasted the whole race, and I sold it the week after. And thought, anyway, long story, after that, I was doing something with a twin cam, Lotus Elan. And I was restoring this Lotus Elan with a twin cam, and he did some bits. And in Hinckley Dodwells, there was a guy called Tony Ingram, who used to run a thing called Twin Cam Techniques in the day.
Right.
And he specialised in doing up twin cam engines. And I went to him with this head for this Lotus, and I said, well, these are nice, you know, look at this, blah, blah. Can you fix that for me? Yeah. Walked outside of the building, there was a cover with could see a nose sticking out. It was obviously a Lotus or something. So I said, what's under there? A Europa. And I told him what we did and everything. And he said, I've got a Ginetta that wants painting. I said, okay. Then I said, what do you want for that? So we did a deal. I painted the Ginetta and he gave me the Lotus. So I ended up with the Europa. And long story, it took me 2 years, but I started to win races in it. So, you know, I learned a lot in a very short 2 years. I learned an awful lot about how to make a car work. You asked me the boring story, but
no, it's good.
this is how it all it came about. And I told you earlier that I'd gone as far as I could with the Europa, because the things were moving on. It was a 72 car, and you know, it's only a 15, or whatever it was, 1500 twin cam.
Yeah, 120 horsepower, maybe, if you're lucky.
Well, I think we were up to 150 at the time, but it was, you were pushing it, and it was constant rebuilds and looking after it and blah, blah, blah. And I thought there's got to be something like this. So I got really into this racing thing, and I was looking at 750 Motor Club. It was very interesting, 750 Motor Club, because I got this 750 Formula and Formula 1300, all like people building their own cars in the garage, etc., etc. And I got talking to a guy there. This is a very interesting part you probably don't know, but his name was Steve Garrett. He worked at GEC, which was in the next village to me in Whetstone, where I lived in Littlethorpe at the time. And he had an RS2000 at the time. And he said, it needs painting. I said, that's all right, I'll paint it for you. And, and we got really friendly. And I said, he was an engineer. And I said, I really fancy building a car. What sort? And the thing I was passionate about at the time was Group C racing, because it was the... Le Mans and Group C was the biggest thing, wasn't it? Great.
Yeah.
There's no way we could afford it. I got no money. All I did was paint cars, So he gave me a hand, and we sketched up a chassis, and we built the first Mark 1 Ultima, if you like.
What sort of year was that? About
it was 81, I think. Yeah. About 81. Because we We finished it in 83, and it was in the magazines in 83, 84, I think. And I won the 86 and 87 kit car championships in it. We'd sorted it out by then. But I was also running it as a business by then. We were selling cars, you know. Not huge amounts, and we were in a 1,000 square foot unit in Narborough. But it was a fantastic life, you know. It was better than painting some rust buckets. And, you know, well, it was. I mean, I was actually building a car of my own.
Yeah, from the ground up. Yeah.
Well, you know, because I got no training in this and no history. I mean, my dad restored a couple of vintage cars, but he was a woodworker. He had a shop in Leicester, you know, and so I hadn't got any, and I chucked the apprenticeship in quite early, so the rest of it had to be self-taught, but that's often the best way to learn something.
I mean, you'd already gone at this point from napkin sketching a chassis to winning the kit car championship within
twice,
3 years, 2 years, 3 years, which is pretty impressive. And there's actually an Ultima link here because this unit is on the same industrial estate as the current version of Ultima sports cars, which is still going. So where do we go from this point then? You're winning the kit car championship in what became the early Ultima. What was next?
Well, probably it all started to go wrong at that point in a way, because it's like anything. If you're reasonably successful at something, people always think that, you know, you can
solve their problems,
miracles,
as well.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I got approached by a couple of people who wanted to do a replica, because that was the big thing at the time, replicas, you know. And I perfectly honest, I didn't even know what one was, and I didn't give it flying, you know. But this guy, two guys, are really good guys actually, and but they convinced me because I'd got the Ultima chassis and I knew how to make it handle, and I'd got the engineering side of it cracked. We just needed a body. They told me we needed a much nicer body, blah, blah, blah. So they decided that we should make a Ferrari P4 replica, and I'd never even heard it. I didn't know what the hell a Ferrari P4 was, but one of the guys was Rob Wilson, who lives in Cosby, and he said, come with me, and we went up to Mount Sorrel, David Clark's place, he'd got an original 330 P4 sitting in there. You couldn't touch it, but you could open the door and look in it. You know, you couldn't actually touch it, you know. And I just said, it's a red thing, you know what I mean? I had, got to be honest with you, absolutely no interest in this thing whatsoever. I couldn't.
It's a car.
It's just, I didn't even like the look of the blooming. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't not my thing, you know. But they convinced me that it would sell thousands, and I thought, okay, well, you know, make a living. It'll mean I can do other things, you know. So put a lot of effort into this damn thing. But the other guy who was involved with this was Clive Smart, who had a company called Shapecraft in Northampton. Really good guy, Clive is, and I still talk to him occasionally on Facebook. But he's very good at the old aluminium panel wheeling and stuff and so on. Of course, you couldn't get a P4 body anywhere. But David Piper had some, apparently, or somebody like that, probably not supposed to mention them, but had some plastic bits for one, but not all of them. So you could put that plastic bit on and this plastic bit on, but we needed a bit in the middle, and it was quite complicated. So, apparently. So Clive made the bits in the middle, and I made a mould for him, and you know, that guy, I'm not going to go on that one. The Smith, whatever his name was, he did the moulds for it, and we sold quite a few. I mean, it was, you know, it's basically had an Ultima chassis and the same Renault V6 engine, because you could go down the scrapyard or Leicester Mercury and buy a Renault 30 or 25 for 25 quid. And you got it.
I think you did that more recently.
I bought one when I was probably about 25 for 50 quid with an MOT.
Exactly. But, you know, life was so different that period, because the Lotus, that taught me, even Chapman, the Lotus Europa had a Renault 17 gearbox in it, you know, and I used to go down, used to blow the damn things up in a Lotus because you got 150 horsepower, so it was made for 10, you know, and at the end of the day. So I just used to have a contract with a scrapyard in Leicester, and every Renault 17 I got the gearbox, and I used to sell them to people in the Lotus Club and put them in my own car. You didn't build them, you just put them in.
Put them in and wait for it to break. Yeah.
But the same thing happens with the Renault 30 was a better gearbox actually, but everybody was like in the kit car, in the replica world, in the GT40s, they were putting this Renault gearbox with a stupid great Chevy in it, or Ford or whatever they were, big American boat tanker, and it was breaking the gearboxes. It was not really a surprise, is it? Because so I thought, what do I do that for? I want a nice lightweight car. I'll keep a V6 in it. So, for 30 quid, I'll just buy another one, put it in. Brilliant philosophy, really. And the kits, to go back to the kit car championship, I won 2 championships, and all I ever had was a scrapyard engine in it. Now, people had got Chevys and twin cams, and some people had spent lots of money. You can imagine they were really pissed off when I used to drive around them. But, it's all about a package, not one bit of it. Sorry, go back to the people selling loads of them, but, it's like, I've got to go back to work tomorrow. I just had no...
Yeah, it's not right then.
I had no interest in the damn... I couldn't stand the bloody car. Sorry, I couldn't.
No, it's fine. I know if you're not excited going to work in the morning, you need to change work.
Yeah, well, it's a shame but it sold a few, and it put money in the bank, and it gave me ideas, of grandeur, if you like. But go back to the Clive Smart thing. I said while he was doing this body, I said, I really like a new body for the Ultima. And I said, I can't be asked to make one at the minute because it's a lot of rubbing down, and I haven't got time because we're making P4s. Would you make me an aluminium thing with a sketch like this? I said, would you make something like that for me? And then I'll go and fill it, and it'd be a quicker way of doing it. Yeah, okay, so he wheeled up a set of panels, welded them together, and that's where the Mark III Ultima came from, which is the one Ted bought off me eventually. Marlowe, that is. Yeah. Going back to that connection. Long after that was made. I built the racing versions of that for things that people like Nigel James, who had a Spider one, and then Bob Light, who had the Coupe one, and we sold quite a few cars. And I built one for GT in Denmark, and we built quite a few cars actually, as it happens.
Timeline-wise, that's late 80s,
that'd be
88, 89.
89, 88, 89. But during that period, I ended up hating the P4 thing. But also the market started to... There was a recession in, was it 91?
91, yeah.
But it was starting to come at that point, and people were not buying as many, and I didn't like it. So I thought, I'll tell you what, I'll try and sell it while things are good. And I did sell it. But... So I'd really only got the Ultima left, and I hadn't done anything with that for a while because I'd been so busy with that. And I thought, I'll tell you what, I'd like to build a car. I'd like to build a supercar, which is probably a bit stupid, but in fact, in reality, it was stupid. But anyway, I'd already designed this thing in my head, and it ended up being called a Ascari, which I decided was a good idea at the time. And it was basically another fiberglass car, but tried to be a bit clever and tried to make it a bit more of a road car rather than racing that the others were, and tried to have a nice interior. And it's not quite as easy as you think, though. No. That sort of thing, It's the problem with all of these things is it all has to be done at a price that you could sell it for, with some, maybe a very little profit, but nevertheless you have to have something to justify waking up in the morning. So, and the ideas are great, and on paper everything looks wonderful till it doesn't work, until you... Anyway, I built this...
Sounds familiar.
I built this car, and it was... a formula was quite simple: space frame chassis, fiberglass body. Needed an engine, so I made the mistake of putting a Chevrolet V8 in it, which was not my thing at all, but and a Porsche gearbox. Car was not terribly good. I never really got on with it, and it had issues, and I'd run out of money by a certain point, and but it was eating money like ridiculous, because to sell it to the market I wanted to sell it to, it had to be of a quality that was very difficult to achieve with what we had. Basically these two hands was it at the time. So I sold the Ultima. Partly, actually, I shouldn't have sold it. And I partly sold it because I kind of felt sorry for Ted in a way. It was a bit stupid of me, but I've done that a couple of times in life. My missus says I'm too nice. But anyway, Ted was... I told he had a civil engineering company.
He'd gone bust,
and he'd got his Ultima, and he was hovering around. And I said, "Well, why don't you have a go at this?" Because I'm not doing anything with it. All the tooling and moulding was sat in a side bit there, and I said, "Why don't you buy that?" So he didn't have any money, and he got hold of one of his people he worked with in the civil engineering, but somewhere out. You say Long Hitchington?
Yeah, it was Long Hitchington, I think.
Somewhere like that. And this guy put the money in, and they took the Ultimate project away, and I think we gave him half a car or something as well. But he built one car, and I think the guy they didn't get on, which was no real surprise. This guy and him. So it took him quite a few years to actually sell anything enough, I would imagine, to make a living or any form of living. But he did it eventually. I sold it for that reason, and I tried to continue with this Ascari project, which didn't really achieve anything. And I kind of knew at a certain point you get to the point where you know that you're going the wrong direction. Basically.
I guess this was a big transition from basically building kit cars / racing cars to actually building where suddenly the customer expectation goes. A lot more qualities are expected, some degree of refinement, interior, fit and finish.
We could probably have done that, but I needed another 10 years really experience of how to do it, I suppose. And it was a mistake, and it was over ambitious, but at the time I've got to go back a bit, sorry. Previous to that, I designed a thing called a Pro Sport. It's called a Pro Sport.
Pro Sport 3000,
Pro Sport 3000. And that, at the same time as the TED thing, I sold TED that, and I thought, okay, I'll sell this Pro Sport thing, because I never finished it. It nearly got finished. Again, it was some guy in Holland with a trucking company who wanted to be Ron Dennis, you know what I mean? And he said he'd pay for it, and he never sent any money over. He sent some boys over with an engine and some wheels, and never saw them again. And then I found out that they'd been arrested, because the reason they were coming over was drug running. So I was stuck with this. He never answered the phone after that. So I thought, I've got this car, so I shoved it in the corner. And I thought, I could sell this. So I sold that to a guy at Silverstone called Chris Taylor. And Arthur Griffin was a guy that used to do a bit of work for me, a bit of sideline stuff, and come and help occasionally. He went to work for Chris Taylor, and one day, where was I? I've lost the plot then for a minute, sorry.
Pro Sport, you were doing...
Right, I sold the Pro Sport, sorry, that was right, yeah. And then I went back, all that money was good for trying to get this damned Ascari done. But I soon got to the point where I realised, like I said, the Ascari wasn't good enough. So Arthur Griffin was doing Pro Sport with a good driver called Klaus Sport. This is where I'm trying to get to. Sorry, I lost.
That's fine. That's fine. That makes sense now. I'm with you now.
Yeah. And Klaus Sport was a racing driver in this thing, and Arthur rang me one day. He said, "Come up to Silverstone, because this Klaus wants to meet you. He wants to look at the car. He wants a car. Wants to get involved." I said, "Okay." And I just wanted out of it. I wanted to get rid of that one as well and do something more interesting. But I met this Klaus guy, and he said, "Let's go back to your place right now." He did a couple of laps of Silverstone in the car, whatever. He said, "Let's go back to your place and discuss the situation." Oh, all right, fair enough. And, one of those wonder things. In a minute, by the time we get into the workshop, I didn't even have time to make a cup of coffee. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse, basically, and bought 70% of the company. And I kept 20 or whatever it was. And I thought, it ain't going to last very long, but who cares? I can pay the mortgage next month.
Yeah.
We were that desperate at the time. the wife was working at Asda stacking shelves at night because we hadn't got enough money coming in. It sounds crazy, but it's often the case. And so then I told you, he came in about the second day and said, right, I want to do Le Mans. Really? Yeah. He said,
This is mad.
I said, Cal, you know, in all fairness, mate, we've got one prototype car here, you know what I mean, and a set of moulds in that corner, and me. Oh, we can get people, that's not a problem. Oh, yeah, I know, and I knew exactly then what was going to happen, the type of people we're going to end up with, you know, all these super genius racing car people that, yeah, they all turned up, and it was a nightmare. But anyway, we built this, anyway, as I said to you, this was in November at the time. Only pre-qualifying for Le Mans was May. So from November to May, we're supposed to build a Le Mans car.
How hard can it be?
No, it's not really difficult, you know. So I thought, what the hell is paying me a salary now? What do I care, you know? And I tried really hard, I've got to be honest. We did build a car, and I said to you, it was actually, I honestly believe it could have qualified for Le Mans. I really do, because it was actually good. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But we get to Le Mans and drive through the night. We get through the rain in Paris. It drives up to this place I've never been before, and they put us in this garage, and everybody buggered off to the hotel, and I was left with this car. I fell asleep in the truck in the end. And I thought, you know, this is not quite the...
This isn't the glamour situation I expected it.
Where are the dolly birds? You know, what am I missing? And I wake up in the morning, and I said the next thing was, we're in this garage. We pushed everything in, and some guy came over and says, "Oh, I'm with McLaren. Good for you. Bye." You know, I mean, big deal. He said, "We've got that garage, and we've got that garage, and that garage." I said, "Yeah, I can see that." He said, "But we want this one because we want them all in a row." I said, "Look, it's pre-qualifying. What the hell does it matter? You know, you're going out for the day, and you're going away, coming back in June to race. You know what I mean? What does it matter?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to move." He said, "Well, we'll swap garages." I said, jokingly, in the first instance, I said, "Give me 500 quid and I'll do it." And the bloke came back later with, "Give me 500 quid." So I moved the garage. And Ron Dennis came up later one year and said, "Well done, that man." You know what I mean? It's a silly little thing, but anyway. So Zwart goes, we get this car here, and I'll tell you, Zwart have got Nigel, Greens, I can't remember the rest of the drivers, some good drivers there, you know. But Zwart decided that it's his money, his car, and he's going to do it his way. So it did, needless to say, I won't go into detail, but needless to say, he did nowhere near qualify this thing, which was mighty frustrating for the rest of the team because we had worked very, very hard. It's not easy to
You're
get.
pretty confident if you got a proper driver in it, yeah.
I'll guarantee it would.
Yeah.
I know it would have qualified. I mean, it wouldn't have been won Le Mans by any stretch of the imagination because there was no budget, but it would have qualified because there was cars like Venturis there.
Yeah.
They were rubbish. They weren't as good a car in lots of ways, but they were qualifying, and he didn't. But anyway, so we came back from that, and in the workshop he said, "Right, we want a road car building." Okay, so I said, "I'm going to do that because I've had enough of this bullshit racing with you."
Did you run that in GTs as well, did you say?
Well, I'm going to get to that,
you're going to get to that, right, yeah. I'm just...
And he said, "Well, I'm going to do the British GT Championship." I said, "Good luck." And I only went to one race because, you know, I'd had enough by then. I'd fed up with him. Bloke, he was an idiot. I thought he was a twat. Anyway, and I don't mind.
For the record and everything.
In my opinion.
It's fine.
Anyway, yeah, so he did the British GT. We went to Thruxton, which was actually quite interesting because I think he must have learnt to drive over the period of 3 weeks, you know, because he'd actually...
You probably told him how bad he was, and he'd been practising ever since.
He was going, "I'll show the bastard." Anyway, he did actually win the first race, and very convincingly. which was interesting because, I mean, Ian Flux was driving one of the McLarens that was from Le Mans that time. And he said he couldn't catch him. You know, he said he tried everything and he could not get past that car. But it was the only race he ever did win in it, because then he came back from that and decided he wanted to change everything. You know,
after beating,
Yeah.
was it that year that the McLarens won Le Mans?
Yeah.
Yeah. So after beating a Le Mans winning car,
Yeah.
he's decided he wanted to change everything.
Yeah, but he wanted to re-engineer it. So I thought, okay, fair enough. You know, that's fine. Bye, carry on. Anyway, that all went. You know, I knew exactly. I'd finished the road car. I got to the point where we'd finished it, just about finished this road car. I don't think I ever drove it, but the next thing I know, I was down the road and my toolbox was out in the street, you know, all that usual crap. And he was trying to sue me for X number of £1,000 and blah blah blah. And so I just, okay, fair enough. Oh no, what it was, we'd employed a manager. It's just a stupid move. He'd employed a manager. And I foolishly invited this guy round to the house one night, because I lived round the road, for lunch, for dinner, whatever it was, you know. And he happened to see through my garage door there was a car in there. And it was the M10, which I'd actually started before I met Zwart, and I'd just put it in the garage at home because it was nothing to do with him. It was, you know...
My little project.
My project, my toy. I've forgotten that bit, yeah. And he goes back the next day and tells Zwart that I'm building this car. Zwart thought, oh, that's a good idea. It's in competition to Ascari. I said, how can you say that? You've never even seen it. But he's tried to sue me because of building in competition to Ascari. That's what the lawyer letter said. But, you know, the guy's got that much money, you can't fight him.
No.
And
that's the problem.
we did a deal in the end where I just walked away. But I had a great pleasure. I had real pleasure. A year later, we'd got 3 M10s. We did the motor show at Birmingham. We were there. We got our own stand. Okay, me and my dad built the stand, but they let us do it, you know. And we got 3 M10s, all nicely done. And the Ascari was over there. And I went over to Zwart, and it's the same one that we'd built in before. All right, Klaus. And that's the last time I'd ever seen him, so that's fine. Yeah. You know, it's just that was that particular...
That seems like quite a sudden jump in the timeline there, almost. Well, maybe not a jump in the timeline, but you've gone from racing to we've got 3 cars at the motor show.
Yeah.
that you started building in your garage.
You didn't do a lot of sleeping at this period, I'm guessing.
No. Well, I was telling you earlier that the M10 was an interesting project because I'd built it and was going to do it as a kit car because I hadn't enough money to go anywhere else with. The first one was built as blue one. And he's had a 1.8 transverse, I think it was a Focus engine or something.
Z-Tex, yeah.
I can't remember what it was now. And I thought as a kit car it might be quite good. But the kit car thing was dying back then and you didn't really realise how bad it was getting. And until I built this thing and I realised it was really... I've sold a couple, but, you know, most of them they wanted us to put them together for them. They didn't want to actually build it themselves. So this is where the 3 cars came from. I got mine and 2 that people are built for people. But I hadn't got any money and it was, you know, we were using... All the money that came in was gone straight away in buying the bits for the next one. We just hadn't got any money. So I tell you this story now about Roger Clark, which is, you know, he's been in the kit car press in one of the magazines. And I get a call one lunchtime. I remember ever so well, I was having something to eat. And this is Roger Clark. Oh, hello, Roger. Now, funnily enough, I'd done some work for Roger when I was like 17, you know, so I sort of knew him, and because he had the car place in Narborough where I lived at the time. And he said, I like your car. I said, can I have a look at it? Yeah, why not? You know, I didn't know anything really what he was up to or anything at the time, and I knew he'd had problems. But anyway, he said, I'm at the pub. I thought, that's a shock. So the Bull's Head it was on the Hinkley Road. He said, would you come up? And it's funny, it's about closing time, lunchtime, you know. I said, okay, I'll come and see you. So I got in there and he was at the bar like this, you know, wobbling about. And I thought, okay, oh, Roger, hello, mate, blah, 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 introduction, blah, blah, blah. Can I have a drive in your car? I thought, go on then. What the hell, I got nothing. I hadn't got anything, so I got nothing to lose, you know. And as I said earlier, he was an incredibly good driver. He didn't go fast, but you knew, even as pissed as he was, you knew that he knew what he was
On
doing.
private roads, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's 847.
When we're testing cars, it is as well. I don't know.
He's been dead a few years now.
Yeah,
so
I don't think he'll get in a lot of bother now.
No, but it was, well, the interesting thing with that was, and he said, "Would you mind if let me go home in it?" I said, "No problem. Take him down his house, down the field." And I thought, well, he just wanted to get home with something, rather than a taxi, because apparently he used to walk across the field and he used to pick him. Kids used to find him in the field, passed out. But I mean, he was the nicest guy, but he got a problem and he couldn't control it. But it's a shame. Anyway, I dropped him off, and I won't get into anything else. But I went home. I think it was a day later. I get a phone call from Roger, and he said, "I want to introduce you to someone called Tony Moy." Whatever. I said, okay. He said, "Would you come up to the house in the morning? I'll arrange a meeting." Okay, fine. Drove up to Roger's place, and Tony came out, shake hands, Tony Moy. I didn't have a clue who he was, but I just thought, I'll be nice, no, can't be a bad thing. Can I have a drive in your car? Okay, no problem. Here's the key. Roger's missus made us a cup of coffee, and we sat in Roger's office looking at all his trophies, and it was nice. I had a nice conversation. Tony went off in the car, came back, didn't seem terribly interested in this thing, which wasn't a shock. And I said, "Nice to meet you. Nice conversation. Nice to meet you. Bye." And he went off. Day later again, in that evening, I get a phone call. "Hi, this is Tony Moy. Sorry I was a little bit," what the word was, but no.
Brief.
Yeah, brief, not interested, not interested. He said, "But there was a reason." He said, "Do you fancy coming to my house tonight and have a conversation?" "Yeah, no problem. Where do you live?" "Great Bowden." "Okay." So it was the manor house at Great Bowden. This place was incredible, As I say, there was a helicopter on the lawn, and two vintage Bentleys in the garages, and grand piano in the hall. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. But anyway, nicest guy, and he was having the wine in the kitchen, and he said, "Look, I want to help you." I said, "Fine." He said, "Let's start a business. Let's do it." Okay. He said, "But I'm going on holiday tomorrow morning." He said, "But you sort out what you want to do, make a plan, blah, blah, blah." And so I said, "Well, what we've got to do is get rid of the 1.8 engine, get it out of the kit car scene and put a decent engine in it, get some power out of it, make it." Because everybody had already said how well it handled and how well it drove. It drove like a production car. It was very good because I'd got all the lessons from the Ascari. And the interior was good, the fit and finish was good, the hood worked, and it was actually quite good. Hard work and not profitable, but good. So to make it profitable, we had to make it quick.
Had you at that point done all the engineering of basically everything on
everything.
it? Yeah.
There's nobody else. There's only me. Me in my garage. That was it. But yes, and I then found out that I didn't realise Tony Moy was part of Page and Moy, which was a travel company, and blah blah blah. Yeah. He went on holiday, and I said, I rang me one day. So I said, "I found a 6, but I've got no money, an engine." I said, "I've got no money. I'll send you some money," and he did. So I built this car. This is how it got to the motor show. We said, "Right, what we're going to do with it? Let's do it properly." We got it in Autocar. They said it was. There's a story. Tony knew Steve Cropley quite well of Autocar, and he said, "We'd like to do this car." So okay, fine. Bring it down to Teddington, Middlesex, where the offices were. And Steve Sutcliffe will drive it. So we drive down there early morning. M1 was terrible, and I got there and I got a bloody headache, stinking headache because of the traffic. Wind up as well, a bit stressed for this thing. Getting to Autocar, which is the thing to do at the time. Yeah. So I parks outside in the car park at Autocar, goes into reception, the woman at reception, and I said, "We've arranged to bring this car, to see Steve Sutcliffe. He's in a meeting." She said, "Just leave the keys on the desk." I said, "No, I ain't going to do that, darling. I'm not going to drive all that way and not even have a conversation with the guy." I was a bit, peeved.
Fed up at that point.
Yeah. So I refused to leave. I sat in the chair, something like this, and I sat there And I waited, and he came out and said, I'm very sorry, blah, blah, blah. But you got the feeling like, really didn't want to do this, you know, and I was getting more and more wound up. I said, look, just do me the favour of pretending you're interested. Let's go out to the car park and let me show you the car, you know. I could tell he wasn't particularly interested. It was a Lotus Elise period when Lotus had just done launched the Elise, and everything was Lotus Elise. And anyway,
what's this funny car that this man in Leicestershire has built in his garage?
It may not have looked correct, which I'd accept now, but it was done for a kit car 3 years before that. So, you know, I was a bit stuck with money and I couldn't do what I wanted to do because I hadn't got the money. But it did actually go incredibly well. Anyway, they eventually did. Tony Moore drove me home in his BMW 8 Series, and I got home and I got a really bad headache by then. I took some paracetamol and I was just about to go and lie down, and my bloody phone rang, and I thought, okay. He said, it's Steve Sutcliffe from Autocar. He said, I'm ever so sorry. He said, I owe you a really big apology. He said, everybody's driven this car and they all think it's absolutely amazing. And that, you know, he said, can we come down tomorrow and do a feature to your house? I said, if you want to come to a house in an estate in Cosby at the time, please do. I mean, it was like that moment where you see the heavens. So, you know what I mean? One of those moments in time. I thought, Jesus, I better go and sweep the floor, and I better make sure the kids ain't in the way tomorrow morning. You know, so I shipped everybody out of the house, swept up the garage, and literally photographers and Steve Cropley and everybody turned up. And then I had to go to London for a filming and blah, 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 blah. And the article they did on the car said it was actually better than an Elise. And blah, if it looked better, it would outsell the Elise, which was an interesting thing because that put it in my head. And I then knew that I could do it. And that changed everything for me because I then understood how you could make a car good enough. Yeah. And that sounds silly, but NVH, I learned a lot about NVH. I learned a lot about, you know, steering and things that you just, you know, on paper, it's one thing. But that's bullshit because you need to do thousands of hours on the road to get that thing to feel spot on when you go into a bumpy bit. And anyway, I did that. And they said, so this is what started I thought, okay, we got this car, we got a V6 in it. The chassis was obviously very, very good. And I thought, why don't I just put a roof on it and smarten it up a little bit and put a roll cage in it, which is what I did. And that turned into the M12. That was basically, and I thought, okay, we need a bit more power because we'd only got 220 horsepower, which was an ST220 engine at the time. So I thought, okay, what do we do here? And again, I was at a show, it's a racing car show, and there was a thing called John Noble Motorsport stand. And I just got talking to these guys, and John Noble was a really nice old guy. He was a really nice guy. And we got on ever so well. And I said, can you know, I want a bit more power out of this. And I fancy turbocharging it, because turbos were all the thing. I'd got, you know, Audi Quattros and all this shit at the time. And turbos were the thing to do. So I said to him, do you reckon we do it? He said, I've got a bloke, my friend, who works for Cosworth in the daytime, but his name was Pete Thorpe. And he basically worked with John in the evenings to take this engine. I mean, it's not as simple as it seems. No. Because you needed to change the con rods in it and you know, you needed to do it properly, because you've got to say, this thing had to be a car that we could sell to you in a showroom and not come back and bite my arse. Now, it did bite my arse a couple of times, but not for the reason you might think, you know. Anyway, he did this engine. It was 2.5 at the time. That's all they had. ST was a 2.5 litre before they bought the 3 litre one out. And all we could get from Ford at that time was the 2.5. Anyway, we built that car, as you know, Top Gear, and then Autocar. Every magazine in the world went mad for the blooming thing, and it, you know, and it did. I've got to be honest, it did work at the time. There was virtually nothing that could beat it. I mean, cars with a lot more money and names that, and we were out selling Lotus. I know that for a fact at one point, because all our dealers were Lotus dealers. They all came to us because they weren't getting enough cars at the time, and they wanted something with more power. And we were getting lots of people cancel a spree order to buy a Noble because it run rings around the damn thing, you know. And it metamorphosed from there because Ford, the biggest things to make money were, the biggest problems we ever had with making money were Ford suddenly decided to drop the 2.5 engine and not tell anybody about it. So no warning, we got no engines, which is really convenient when you've got, I think we had 60 cars on the water at any point, you know, on ships coming from South Africa. So it got a bit hairy at times. We had cars stored in every goddamn barn and building in people's garages because we just got no engines.
How did stepping back again slightly there.
Sorry,
how did the South Africa? How did the South Africa
go back to the beginning?
Start? Yeah.
Well, when we got the M12 and the M12 with Autocar and Clarkson did the runway thing with Darth Vader, and he said it's the best car. It will not understeer and all this crap, which is true. But the phones went mad. And we suddenly got all these dealers, and we said everything was great. But I said, Tony, I don't mean to be rude, but there's me and 2 people in a workshop that's 800 square foot in Barwell next to a motorbike company. What are we going to do? I mean, literally, what the hell are we going to do? Are you going to fund a factory and train people? I mean, it's a big job.
It's a big job.
It's a very... very big job. Now, it's great to be successful, and for me, that was a fabulous feeling to know that I'd won a particular race, if you like, because that was what I always looked at it as a race. I got annoyed with the Lotus thing when they said, you know, the Elise to the M10 thing. I thought, right, I'm going to beat them. Next time I'll show them, you know. And that's why I did it. But anyway, I said, what are we going to do? And I said, we could need somebody to make this thing. And I said, you know what? I remember in the Ascari days, a chap used to visit me quite regular, South African, big chap, and I can't remember his name. I said, but leave it with me. I went home that night and I went through all these old cards I got in drawer, you know, and High-Tech Automotive, South Africa. That was him. So we rang him the next day. Within 2 days, we were on a plane to Port Elizabeth, South Africa. And I said to you, I expected it to be something like this, you know. And
couple of 1,000 square foot, and
a few guys in the corner rubbing down. But you know, we went up the highway and across these things and into this electric gates into this field, and then there was a mile drive, and then there was all these buildings. Were like this, but twice the size. But there was about 10 of them, and 642 people they employed. But I had never heard of them. I mean, because I wasn't into... They did replicas, basically, mostly sold in America. It was a super-performance thing they do. They were very good, actually, but not my cup of tea. But they could build them, and they got all the right... Everything. They've got their own machine shops. They've got moulding facilities, paint facilities. They've got everything they needed to make a production car. Let's be honest with you. There was no other options for us. But we needed money because I said to Tony just after we had a meal, I said, it's all very well, Tony, but you still got the same problem. How the hell are we going to fund this? Leave it with me. So I retired early and I left Jimmy Price and Tony Moy on the veranda with a
brandy,
with a bottle of whatever. And I wake up in the morning, Tony comes down to breakfast. He said, all sorted. What do you mean all sorted? He said, I've done a deal. I said, go on then, how much is this costing? Because it's, money. No, it ain't going to cost anything. You only need to send them a car. So Jimmy Price had actually agreed to do this at his cost. And repayment was per car basis, so every car we had to put on a percentage for repayment of the loan. But I don't think the loan was ever a set figure.
It wasn't a known amount.
No, it didn't matter because I didn't care because at the end of the day we made 3 or 4 grand every time we took a phone call and signed a cheque, So I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't give a damn. It funded me, and it was a great place to be. I mean, it's not huge money, but out of a new car in a showroom, you don't make a lot of money.
No.
Nobody does. It's a bit on every, Anyway, he said he could do it all in a year. Well, that was a bit of a tall order, to be honest with you, which I knew he wouldn't, but he was about 4 months late, and we were getting desperate because everybody was starting to disbelieve, you know, because even Autocar said it's great to have this car and it's fantastic, but how the hell are they going to make them? They haven't got a factory, which was a fair comment. You know, TVR had got this messy place in Blackpool and everybody was, TVR can do it, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, not quite that simple. Anyway, it did work, and Jimmy was late, so he decided to fly them at his cost, because I said, I can't afford to pay you to fly them, so we didn't lose face. So he flew the first, I think it was 150 cars on a jumbo jet. So every 2 days we were getting a car from Heathrow Airport. I was sending my transporter to Heathrow Airport to pick up a motor car, pull it out of a jumbo jet, put it on the back of the transporter. And it was good business. You know, it was great. But then they started coming on the ship eventually, so he fed it in quite nicely. But we were getting 6 a week, and it was a great business. There's no...
It's a bit of a jump up
it's
from not many years before.
Yeah, it's
but all in a matter of a year, really.
Yeah, that's like a proper... It's that pinch yourself moment was basically when Autocar came to your house to shoot your car, and you went from building a car in a shed to people saying, this is better than a Lotus.
Well, I also won Driver's Car of the Year and 3 magazines. You know, I went to London to be presented awards and stuff like this before. So going from a guy in the garage... in the garden, which was literally a big garage, but a garage in my garden, to standing on a stage in London getting these pots and pans and rewards and, you know, having lunch in the Ivy with the Stig and Vicky Butler Henderson and all these people, you know, and thinking, what the hell's going on here?
How did this happen?
this guy from Narborough's like, you know, going, all right here. You know? I'd be tired. I remember being in Hyde Park. There was a big marquee in Hyde Park where Autocar had these yearly awards. They were quite a big thing back then. All the major players there, Ford and everybody. And I walked in there and I won this award. I had to go up on the stage to this award. And then afterwards, all these people, the boss of Aston Martin, were coming to shake my hand. And all these people, Ford people, and I'm thinking, you know, this is
nice.
Get used to this.
I remember thinking on the way home, how the hell can I turn this into money?
Yes,
into real
it's
money.
nice, but all that filler sanding was worth it.
Yeah, but by then we'd been, you know, I think we'd sold, I can't remember, it's got to be a couple of thousand cars, I suppose, worldwide. But there was a few problems along the way. The early ones, I'm going back to that from the John Noble engine things. The engine was bulletproof, but I'd missed one trick about oil starvation, which was a bit of an issue. It was fine on the road and fine on a sort of a track day. Not too good a driver track day. But if you really pushed it, 1 or 2 people started having engine failures, bearing failures, because we got oil surge. And I had to spend the whole weekend designing a sump with like a pot on the bottom. And it worked, and they all got made that way after that. But we did have to replace, I think it was 10 or 12 engines. It got expensive. And there was other issues. It's not as simple as you think. Ford then decided that they'd introduce a 6-speed gearbox, which was quite revolutionary back then. It doesn't seem much now, but it was back then, because we'd all been 5-speed. We went from the 2.5 to the 3, so we had to re-engineer it for 3 litre. Then they didn't tell us, you know, then they told us the 6-speed would be available. So we told all the customers we could have a 6-speed gearbox and the 3R, right? So we sold a load of cars because everybody wanted a 6-speed gearbox. Then Ford said, it's late, we can't do it. We're going to be 6 months behind. So what do I do with all these customers? Not our problem, is it?
No.
So again, we had cars stored everywhere. You wouldn't believe it. We couldn't make any money. And then I was coming out of Hyde Park after winning that thing, and I thought, we need more money. And I didn't want to lose Tony Moore, but I wanted somebody to put some cash in. You know, cash so we could get over these hurdles, because keep going like this was just... I was going backwards, you know. It's really, really bad. Then I thought, we got over that eventually. I thought, right, we need to now take Noble from this one-off car company that's built something that's, okay, it's taken over a few people and it's upset the world and it's, you know, can beat Porsche and beat Ferrari and beat blah, blah, blah. We need to build something a little bit more refined again, going back to the old theory. But now I could do it because I knew what I didn't know back in the Ascari days.
All the pieces of the puzzle had kind of slotted
we'd already
together.
got half of the job done with the suspension and the chassis setup on the M12 was good enough, but we needed to go the next stage. So the next stage was turn the engine round, and I said, at the motor show that year, I met somebody from Graziano Gearboxes, way out of our league, but I'd spent some time driving an Enzo for various reasons, and I said to this guy, I said, oh, you do the Enzo box? He said, yeah. He said, they don't make Enzos anymore. They've stopped making it. I said, what happened to all the gearboxes? Is there any hanging around, sort of jokingly a bit, you know? I said, because I could really do with a nice in. Oh, he said, you can't do that. So he said, I'll find you one. And he sent me an Enzo box, and I took all the crap off it and made it manual shift, changed all the linkage on it, and put it in the prototype car, which was the M15. It was called the M15. I redesigned the body, and the M15 was much more refined, electric window. I mean, that sounds silly, but for a little car company there, it had electric windows, the aircon was much better. It was a road car, and it was very, very quick. And that was the next generation, but that leads to the end of Noble, really. That it was too successful for its own good. Top Gear had it. It beat Koenigsegg, it beat Pagani, it beat all of these round the track, you know. And when you look back at that episode now, you think, how the hell did I do that, you know? And it received, Autocar said it was brilliant, and we had 85 orders overnight for this car. And this was with and Graziano then decided they'd build a gearbox for us, and we'd had to buy some. So I think we bought 25. The minimum was 85, I think, order or something, and we had to buy 25 up front to show willing, which is quite an investment for a little car company. And then we ended up having to buy 25 engines as well for another reason, but because we got screwed by a company. Anyway, that's another story. The engines got done by, what's it called? Is it Roush or somebody like that? Anyway, they wanted to take it away from John Noble, Noble Motorsport as it was now, and build the engines for the 15. So we got engines and gearboxes, orders, TV coverage. This car was winning, and everybody wanted it, and it was going to be very good. It was easy to build, it was very well engineered, and now we needed to make it.
You'd proven you could build it with the M12s. You knew the plan. The same guys building it.
And I've taken it from there to a car that was actually refined. This is before lots of cars, you know, that you see today. And this was quite, in its day, it was good. But the problem was, how the hell do we build this? So coming out of this award ceremony in London, I got my tie on this thing, you know, and I can't remember what it was. I had a phone call from a guy called David Jones. And I didn't know him from Adam, but he said, oh, my name's David Jones, and I'm the chairman of Next. I said, that's nice for you, more or less, you know. And he said, I own a company called Ronalt.
Oh, yeah.
I said, oh, never mind. You know? I said, oh, unfortunate. Anyway, he said, look, I've got this company and I don't know what to do with it. I said, well, look, drop a car off at my place tomorrow and let me have it for a week, and I'll do a report on it, see what I think, you know, tell you what I think. And unfortunately, I did a report, and frankly, it was nowhere near good enough to invest, you know, anything in it. You know, I don't think it was worth it, because it was a Jaguar. And it was an old Jaguar at that. And
they were like a replica open wheel thing, weren't they? With a Jaguar.
No, he did a coupe thing. It wasn't bad looking, but it was sort of a mix between a Jaguar and a Daytona coupe, and it was like a semi-old-fashioned thing, which is really not where the market was in the 2000 and
2004, I guess, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And I said, you know, I think you'd be wasting your time and money. So he said, I'll come and see you. So he turns up, chauffeur-driven limo, you know, parks that, so comes in the workshop, and I went up the boardroom with him, had a chat, and I said, oh, David, I wouldn't bother. And I said, but are you interested in a car company, you know, like funding something? He said, oh yeah, might be. And anyway, we did a deal there and then. And, I hadn't seen Tony Moy for a couple of months. And just at that point, he walked through the door. You couldn't believe it, And I was going to try and sort of tell him...
Soften it a little.
Yeah, and I think it was the biggest mistake I ever made because Tony was a fantastic bloke. One of the best people I ever met. But what I didn't want to do was have two people funding it, you know what I mean? Because I thought, well, it's like having two bosses then. You're going to have two arguments or two disagreements or four different opinions. So David said to me, he said, what do you want to do with Tony? I said, and I should have said keep him. But I said, let's not get rid of him, but the word was that if we can pay him off what he's put into it, because he actually, we got to that level, he'd only put 300 grand into it.
Bloody hell.
That's clever. That was how clever he was. He was very good at getting something for nothing. Everything he did somehow managed to get it really clever. But we had just borrowed 1.2 million from Travelsphere, which was what Page and Moy turned into was Travelsphere in Market Harbour. And the guy who ran that was Tony's good friend. And Tony wouldn't put his own money in, but we needed the original grill was 1.2 million to send to South Africa to get them to build this car. And I didn't like the repayment on that. It wasn't a nice place to be. The problem was, whilst that was being done, we were having to make that repayment money out of selling M12s. There was no... So any profit we were making out of M12s was just disappearing into payment for the next one, which is nice, but on a weekly basis, it's very difficult to pay the wages, and I just didn't feel comfortable. And I knew there was somebody out there that would put... So David paid off the £1 million, and we carried on to build this vehicle, but we didn't ever get to send it to South Africa because David... We decided that to carry on with the M12s for a while because they were selling. And by the time we'd got everything in place to send it to South Africa, the M15, David had decided for various health reasons, more than anything, I think, because he got Parkinson's disease and wasn't very well, to pull out. So that left me in a big hole again. So...
and this was around, about 2006?
5 or 6,
right,
6, I think, yeah. After that spelled the end, really, but I was actively looking for somebody to replace David as an investor. And I was speaking to some quite good people, some quite interesting people, and I think probably all would have screwed you anyway, because when you're into that kind of money, those sort of people are not necessarily nice people.
No.
But I was talking to somebody very good and getting quite close. But then all of a sudden I get a phone call. This is Peter Dyson. He said, I'm in the country. Can I come and see you? Whatever. Yeah, go and have a chat, So this guy, American guy, turned up. Now, he was a guy that bought the first M12 that went to America before we were selling in America because he wanted one early. Now, Peter Dyson, I didn't know him from Adam, he's just a customer, but it turned out he owned a company called Thetford. Well, his dad or his parents or his family owned a company called Thetford, which basically made shit houses, which was the best thing for it, for caravans and motorhomes. You've seen them all, but I didn't know that. And then I got to find out who he was, and his brother, Rob Dyson, raced in IMSA and all that in America. And the big, very, very wealthy, very, very wealthy. His wife was the biggest sponsor of the Obama campaign.
Right.
So you're talking...
That level of wealth.
Yeah, you're talking serious money. And he said, I want to do this. But he was a con man, just because he could be, basically. And I think I told him, but he promised the moon and, but basically cheated and conned and lied. And he turns up. We did a deal. And it was all supposed to be signed, and he was supposed to arrive the next morning. I remember it, and we were supposed to go to this solicitor and have it paper signed. Rings up that night, so changed my mind.
And that was a deal for a proportion of the business?
Yeah. But it was a good deal for me.
Yeah.
Well, an acceptable deal. Not a good one, but an acceptable deal to achieve what I wanted to achieve. Because if the company could have gone where I wanted it to go, it would have been a very good deal. And it could have done. Anyway, I rang up, changed my mind. I'm not coming. Well, okay. Fair enough. So, 2 days later, he rings back up. He said, got a better idea. Oh, here we go, So he then wanted all of it. But he'd give me X number of pounds and and promised to do this and promised to do that, and all of that. So we did that, and I ended up as managing director or whatever it was, in name, And the whole thing was, right from day one, geared to fund the M15 production in South Africa. There was 2 things happened there. He walked in the first day, and I said, right, let's go and look at this car because I need to get it in a container to send it to South Africa. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. What do you mean not going to do that? He said, I don't like it. He wouldn't come up with a good reason why he didn't like it. He never even sat in it. He never even drove it. He just wanted to prove a point. He just wanted to show how tough he was, how... So, I couldn't believe that. But anyway, I said, OK, well, just go to South Africa and listen. And, so I sent him and his hairy sidekick opposite, this dickhead that runs the place now. I said, I'm not going because I'd have probably beaten the shit out. So I decided not to go because my temper isn't, Anyway, I was Jimmy Price rings me on the phone. He said, I've thrown him out.
God.
Told him to fuck off. Really? He said, yeah. He said, I'm not working with people like that. He said, I'd lose my business. I said, yeah, I know you would. But he did. He was very clever, very shrewd, and he said, I'm not doing it. So that was the end of that. And Dyson said, cut it up, I don't want it. So 85 orders, all that work, a year's work and everything, gone. All the Graziano gearbox, everything we'd done that would have took the car company from a little shed to have a car with its own, with its own gearbox and it go in the right direction. All gone. I want to build a car. He said, what happened to the M14, which was 2004 show car we did for the motor show? And I said, the body's in the container out the back. Now, the 14 was a rebody shell on the M12. But what had happened, the M12, and the reason I wanted inline gearboxes, we'd got so much power out of that engine now, we were breaking gearboxes. With the M400 started to break gearboxes. So we had to bring back the power a little bit. This is why I went to Graziano. Well, the Graziano thing happened because I needed a gearbox and I needed to change it from transverse to inline because there was no DSG boxes or any of that back then. It was just a manual 6-speed and it was breaking. They just weren't up to it. So I couldn't sell cars because I knew every one of them had come back. Because when you did the 400, everybody thinks it's a racing car, so everybody's driving it twice as hard.
Out, yeah.
Well, it was good, but, you would break it. And so I had to do the gearbox, and that's what started the whole thing. But he said to me, what happened to that car? So I said it's in a container out the back. And I thought to myself, I know where this is going. I've been there with the Scari and I can see what's going to happen. When I've done this car, I'm going to be out the door. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And funnily enough, it was exactly what happened. But anyway, I said, if we get it in the workshop, he said, I want that car with a V8. I said, well, it needs a new chassis for a start because it's not built for inline, and what about that chassis? I said, no, that's no good. It would have been perfect, the 15 one, but I wouldn't tell him that. I said, no, got to build another one, much better. And it's got to have a carbon body, because I knew that cost 150 grand, and it was nothing to him. It didn't mean a thing to him, but it made me feel good. This guy wanted to be my best friend all of a sudden, after fishing on me. And I used to smoke cigarettes like 40, 60 a day when I was stressed, you know what I mean? He said, I'll give you 50 grand if you stop smoking. OK, I'll stop smoking. He gave me 50 grand. But that's just, again, to prove who's boss. Just like...
That's strange, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all this happened, and it's true, So I built this car, the M600, and, to this day, they've never really done it right, because I got no interest in this thing. With couple of the cars I'd done, I'd beat lots of billet uprights, you know, and I still do, but they were really nicely machined billet uprights. And for the 15 was, but then for this 600, I thought, we need bigger ones, told him, we need bigger brakes and all this crap. He didn't really, but I don't know, more money, more time, you know, more wages for me, more mortgage payments. So great, we'll keep going. So I designed some uprights, but I only did a sketch. And I thought, I'll tell you what, I can't be bothered to draw that. I gave them to the blokes in the office. And to this day, they were never finished. And they still look like... They look... You see one now and you think, well, who the hell had put that great chunk of metal on there? It's awful. You know, and it could have been half the weight, but they've never done it because they've got nobody there who knew how to do it. But I didn't want to do it. And I made sure it took over a year to build that car. But then the worst thing was he said he wanted a V8 in it. So I said, right, you want to... At the time, you don't want a Chevy in it because every kit car company's got a LS3 or whatever it is in the car. We want something to take the company, you know, which is why I wanted to work with the Ford in the M12 and like proper brand new engines, not some old what people considered to be old Yank things. So I said, what about the Yamaha, which was in the Volvo? And it was a nice little engine in that car. However, you took it out of that environment and tried to make it do things, it wasn't as good. But then he said, oh, I'll take the engine to America and I'll get it sorted. Why? You've got people up the road in Chesterfield who built every single Noble engine. We've got no failures. They know what they're doing. I've got the guy from Cosworth who knows what he's doing. I said, why? I've got some good friends in New York, they'll do it. Well, the engines were a disaster. Absolute disaster. I mean, I think the first one didn't even get out of the workshop. Anyway, the second one came. I'd done a bit of testing in the car, but with a standard engine in because couldn't get an engine from him. They were rubbish. They kept coming and they just fell to bits or smoked or just rubbish. So one turned up one day. This is the end of this particular story, by the way. But we went to Bruntingthorpe to test this bloody thing. And I couldn't... This engine's terrible. That came from America. I couldn't beat this Rover. There was, what was it, Car Magazine, there's a video somewhere online of Car Magazine not supposed to have taken this video because you sign a thing going into Bruntingthorpe at the time.
Yeah.
You know, you don't take other people. Anyway, they did. They took a video of me and I couldn't get past this. Well, I did get past him, but blooming hard work. It hadn't got the power, you know, it was rubbish. And then the next day, this Yank turned up and said, look, we'll go up to Bruntingthorpe again to try this car. Matt Walton turns up with an Audi R8. And I said, give me the keys. So I gets in this R8, and I mean, I fucking nailed this thing round there like you wouldn't believe, and you could not break this car. And I came back and I parked out this Yank, and I said, you're wasting your bloody time, mate. You ain't got a hope in hell. You know, you ain't never going to make it with this. It's all wrong. And I quit. Oh, you can't quit, I need you, blah, blah, blah. This was on the Friday. And Monday morning, I get a phone call from one of the assholes I employed saying, don't come today, the locks have all been changed. And I get a writ from some lawyers in London saying I owed him, I think it was 300,000 quid in damages and this, that and the other. And I'd had my Porsche, somebody, that long-haired idiot who took a picture of my Porsche on the ramp in the workshop one night. I just wanted to change the tyres on it. You know, I mean, it was after work. I wasn't doing it, but he took pictures, so I've been working on my Porsche. There's some sad bastards out there. People like that, you've got to be, you know, you don't see it coming. Anyway, this writ came for 500 grand. You wouldn't believe the rubbish in it. And this long-haired idiot got the Mercury to publish it and make me look even worse, which was all bullshit. And I couldn't find a lawyer anywhere, nowhere in the world. I could not find a lawyer that would fight these people in London. Apparently, they'd been in prison and they were really, really people you do not play with. Couldn't find anybody. So I was a bit knackered. I needed 300 grand. I hadn't got anything. Luckily, one of my racing friends, he rang me and said, "What's going on?" Because he'd heard about somebody who's raced at Le Mans anyway. And he said, "Come and see me tomorrow." I went to, he's in Cambridgeshire, so I weren't really feeling very good, but I went down. And he said, "I want you to meet someone." So he introduced me to a really nice guy called Warren Mosler.
Right, yeah.
You know the guy.
Yeah.
Somebody I didn't know, but anyway, Warren agreed to loan me the money, which paid this yank off, so he couldn't do anything, because there was no other way out of it. But of course I was in debt now for serious money, And he did it very clever, because I'd sold one house and bought another house, and he did it dead right, because that house was under contract to be sold to get the deposit for the bigger house, right? And he said, "Oh, don't worry about that, I'll lend you the 200 grand to deposit." So that was also in there, So I had not sold the house, I'd cancelled the sale of the house. Oh, we were in the hole, so to speak.
Deep doo-doo.
But anyway.
So it feels like there was a pivotal kind of point where your heart went out of it, which was around basically the point at which the South Africans fell out with the investor. And that, presumably at that point, that felt like your last hope of it being built the way you wanted it to be built.
Yeah.
You'd got quite a team behind you. You've got the team over there, and it just all worked at that point.
But teams are absolutely hopeless without a leader.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what they didn't realise. They thought that it was just, it's all done now, so we can... And it took them another 2 years. And in the 20-something years since I left Noble, I think they've sold 4 cars.
It's what an unbelievable roller coaster. This is like from man in a shed building a car to autocar turn up to it's the most desirable car really out there, outselling Lotus. Yeah. How the hell do we build these cars? Suddenly thousands of cars being sold. We're going to bring out another one, a sequel, the ultimate car, and then it just all fell apart.
Well,
it's almost back to it feels from my point of view, with you telling the story, this was almost back to just a man with a shed and a house again.
There you go. This is what it...
Full circle.
Right, finish the...
And the failing, sorry I'm interrupting, but the failing is the money man getting involved. But anyway, back to your story.
Here's the next part of it, you see. This is... I was desperate. I was absolutely, struggling. We'd paid off. We'd borrowed this money. Then there was a guy, another Dutchman, strangely enough, who, Harry something, he had apparently bought Pro Sport from Chris Taylor. And he was another Dutchman, and he rang, well, he didn't ring me up, he employed a bloke called Graham, somebody who worked in this country, and he rang me up and said, this Harry bloke wants to do Daytona 24-hour. I said, "Oh, lovely, great." And I got nothing at the time because we were in debt. So he wants you to design and build a car for it, but wants to make it a Pro Sport. But it had to be an open-top car because in those IMSA rules were open-top cars, I mean, I think Derek Bell won it in a something about, I can't remember what it was, Porsche, whatever, that year. But anyway, in a few months, I built a car in the garage again, back to my garage again. I redesigned the Pro Sport as a Spider, which fitted the IMSA rules, We flew to Daytona and did 24-hour race with the car, and it finished the race. So it at least proved these Yanks what I wasn't the faulty, you know what I mean?
This feels like the full circle back to the Le Mans story at the beginning.
It's a similar thing, but the best thing about that was we were all promised, me and the engineering guy who did the bits and the carbon guy and everybody, and the same carbon guy we talked about earlier, were all promised payment after the Daytona. Guess what? Nobody got a penny. Never got paid for that bloody car. I got mad, got the trailer on the car, got all the people together, went down to Brackley where it was in the workshop, and went in the workshop, and there's one guy in there, Robin, and I said, don't get in my way. You know, I'm taking this car. Started to push it out and said, give me a hand to put it on the trailer, all these blokes, and they wouldn't do it. They said, no, they chickened out. So I lost all that as well. So car business is not...
So here's a question. I mean, you actually said something, a quote, which I wish I could remember now earlier, 40 years of, I don't know. But it seems like you sort of started from nothing, and then it's probably not fair to say you ended with nothing, but the bit between, to me, just seems amazing. If you could live that whole thing again, would you do the same thing again?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the disease.
Yeah.
It is. In fact, I probably am doing it again. Yeah. I probably will.
So let's sort of end on the future, because I've got a feeling you're probably back in the garage building the next thing.
I've moved to Lincolnshire and I've got a bigger garage. So yeah.
And what are you working on at the minute?
I have a project that's reasonably near to completion, should be next year. Something very, very different.
Ooh, I'm really intrigued now, but maybe we should keep that under wraps, shall we?
Yeah, well, for now, I can't really say too much, but I think it's a bit out there. But I think, based on the current world, there is no point me trying to build a car in competition with, any of these things anymore. But it's a bit like, 30 years ago, Ariel sent me a car, right, which I just looked at it and I thought, you've got to be joking. Who the hell would want to drive around in a ladder with an engine strapped in it? No, to me.
Yeah. You're dead. Yeah.
And they're still making the damn things. Which I could never understand this. But then, after all this shit, I started thinking, the other thing that's interesting is the Ultima's still selling. No, it's not going to make millions of pounds, but it is still selling motor cars. And there are obviously... And the reason for that was it was a racing... I did it because I wanted to build a racing car, and it was... Everybody said to me, don't be silly, nobody's going to buy that. Because it was... Even the Mark 1, it's a big old thing, and in its day, it looked so out of place on the road, but people did want it. I was pleased, and it wasn't just for racing. I mean, we only sold, I think, 3 Mark 1s ever raced. People were all over the world There's a club now, they're restoring them, And I think... So, I look at that and I think, well, the moment I tried to build all these really good cars that were in competition and tried to win all these awards, which I did, but then the market's very, very difficult and the tooling's very, very expensive, and I don't think it's a place I want to go. So I'm going to build a toy.
Niche toys, I think,
yes.
are where it's at.
That's a good way I sort of couldn't think what to say then, but yes, niche toys, very good point. And that's what I'm doing, and I think it's very, very good and very, very different. And I'm not going to sell 1,000 next year, but if I sell enough to fund my retirement, I'll be happy.
Wow, well, that's a great point to end on, I think. And
thank you very much, Lee.
An amazing story. It's been amazing listening to that, and I can't wait to see what it is you come up with as the which I'm guessing we'll find out in the next couple of years.
Oh, hopefully sooner than that. I am working on it, but it's on your own. It's
in your timeline. It's probably going to be 3 weeks until you finish. I mean, you went from mucking around in a shed to selling thousands of cars in about 2 years.
You've got to remember, when I did the Ultima, I was 32, I think it was. I'm 68 now. It's not quite as easy.
Yeah.
But it'll get there.
You need more. You need a bit more sleep now.
That's one thing I don't do is sleep, because I wake up thinking, how the hell do I do that?
Yeah.
But it's just the same as you guys. It's the passion.
It's a disease.
It is. That's even better.
It is not the industry to be in if you want to make $1 million, unless you're starting with 2.
That's the famous saying.
Everyone that starts with 2 loses it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is even more interesting, because I have experience of those people with the money. They don't have a clue how to make a car.
No.
Simple as that.
Well, Lee, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great.
Cheers.